Hi again. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this last episode on fraud prevention. And as normal, we will go through the lesson and I'll have my camera on. And of course, you can contact us on our socials if you have any questions or any information that you'd want to know about financial wellness and financial literacy. Definitely give us a call or follow us on our socials and definitely keep that notification on so that you can know when we have more of our classes posted. All right, let's kick off on the last session on financial wellness, focusing on fraud prevention. Switch off my camera and we will then kick off. Alrighty. Okay. Right. Let us see. Okay. So fraud prevention. Yes, our last lesson for today. And just for a recap, what is financial fraud, which is what we covered in our first lesson, right? And financial fraud is a broad term that refers to any intentional act of deception involving financial transactions for the purposes of personal gain, right? Remember, guys, that essentially fraudsters want to get access to your money and you will always be at a loss. And we have a few things in terms of the key elements of what financial fraud is. Firstly, there's always deception. So fraudsters will always lie to you and come up with stories and just mislead you in any way and in any way possible so that they can get access to your finances. And then secondly, it's always there's some form of financial loss in your part. And of course, it's illegal, guys. So this act that they do in terms of fraud is against the law, and so that's why they tried various ways to get access to your finances. So just keep a lookout, and that's why today's lesson is very important, right? And then our second lesson, we talked about the different types of financial fraud, focusing on investment fraud and phishing scams. So the first lesson, apologies, was actually investment fraud. And then we had one lesson focusing on phishing scams and how phishing scams work and how you can actually protect yourself against these type of phishing scams and investment fraud. So today, like I said, we're going to be focusing more on how to protect yourself from financial fraud, right? So personal financial security is the first line of defense, okay, against fraud. So before you think about your business, you need to protect yourself individually first. And these measures are meant to actually help, right? Help protect you from these fraudsters, because ideally how they normally actually catch us is that they would usually utilize digital channels, and we're in the digital age. Everybody's on their phones. Every time we're trying to do transactions, people rarely go to the bank. They normally utilize online banking, and so it actually exposes you to even greater risk. So please keep a lookout and don't click on links you are not familiar with, right? So, personal security measures. Okay. So, firstly, a strong password. You never go wrong with a strong password, guys, because essentially, for me to be able to access your personal information, be it your internet banking and so forth, I would need to have some form of your credentials. So, utilizing a strong password, eight characters? That's normally the norm, eight characters long, and maybe it should have few numbers and special characters. Stay away from utilizing your name and surname as a password, right? Rather utilize things that you may like, if you've got a favorite car, a favorite song, right? And just be a bit more creative when it comes to your password. I know it is tricky because you are more at risk to forget said password, but that's why you try and utilize something personal aside from your name and surname, but maybe your favorite song, your favorite food, right? Your favorite movie, because those are things that are personal to you that it's not necessarily easily accessible, right? Online. and information that people would not be able to guess easily. Okay, because normally people would guess your pet's name, high school boyfriend. Well, that's another good one, right? That's another good one. Have your high school boyfriend or girlfriend's name as a password, right? Your partner's name or surname as a password. But you're trying by all means to make sure that you are utilizing information that people do not necessarily have access to. That's basically the point, right? And then another point is that you need to change your passwords regularly, right? I know that it's daunting because you don't want to make these changes, especially because you keep forgetting and we're creatures of habit, right? So having to change and update passwords is not really a nice thing to do all the time because now you need to remember this new password. So instead of, trying to actually run away from changing the password, then you use you avoid you there's different platforms that you can utilize, right? That can help you store your password, right? And that way you can be able to actually make sure that you still have secured passwords, but they're stored somewhere, right? Depending on the devices that you use and so forth. So utilize those type of technologies to try and help you protect your information as much as possible, right? And of course, avoid using the same password for multiple accounts. I cannot stress this enough because, I mean, think about it. You can't be using the same password for any of your platforms, especially if it's going to have sensitive information, right? Social media you can get away with, but you've seen what happened, guys, when people get hacked and so forth, and because these fraudsters differ in shapes and forms. So some people they just want some form of information that they gather from your socials and so forth. So I would say avoid using the same password even in your socials, because I mean, ideally you don't want to find a situation where people are utilizing your platforms and posting incorrect information, and now you need to backtrack statements and just complicating your life just by not having a habit of changing your password, right? So that's the first simple one. And then a secure communication is another one, right? So always encrypt documents with sensitive information when possible. So you can easily do this, right? If you need to send any form of documentation, right? Encrypting it even on, for example, sending you send it via maybe PDF, you can encrypt it and use maybe your ID number or a special number that you would send to that person or let that person know prior, or a number or something that a person would know for them to be able to access that information. So, for example, if you're sharing any documents with a friend that is sensitive information, you can give them a call and say, hey, I'm going to send you this information, but the password for this information is my ID number. If your friend knows your ID number, or it's these 10 numbers or 5 numbers or 4, however many numbers that you put in as that particular protection for that document, right? Because that also ensures that if anyone has access to that document, they're not able to actually open it because you've encrypted it. And that's the whole purpose of it, right? So here's another one. Be cautious of unsolicited calls, emails, texts, asking for personal information, phishing attempts. Okay, so I like this tip here. Create a new email for important info. Guys, we can have like 1,000 emails, right? I don't advise having 1,000 emails actually, but just to stress the point that ideally you don't necessarily need to use the same email address for all important information. So, for example, you can create a new email address that you can use for your internet banking, right? The same email address, you can use it to register maybe for your Netflix account and so forth. So, all you have, then you know that you have one email address that you utilize maybe for all this important information. That way, that information is a bit more secured because you don't use it for personal use. Because I mean, guys, there's data leaks. So when your data gets leaked, there's always your information attached to it, your emails and so forth. So that's why you get a lot of spam and we get a lot of these phishing emails because of these data leaks. And ideally, if it's a work email, right? I think my email was also involved in a data leak. So I can't now delete my work email and say, I'm going to create a new email. But what I can do is that I can can create a separate email and change the email address for all the important information, right? So for example, if I'm going to be getting invoices from clients and so forth, I rather send them a new email and call them and let them know that no, this is the new email that you can utilize for billing purposes or any information for statements and so forth. That way, I know that all the phishing emails I get on my personal email, it has nothing to do with the business, right? And I know that it's a nice measure that I've put in place. I've done the same thing with my personal email. I've got 3 different personal emails, right? And I know that this one particular email is just used for important information. And I don't get spam emails on that particular email because that email is not attached. People don't email me on that email. So no one has that information aside from the bank, right? Aside from all the other service providers that I utilize. So it's easy also for me to be able to detect that, hey, why is AfriHost emailing me on my personal email? Because there's a specific email I use for this type of communication. So it also helps, right? Because now you're able to see that, hey, this is not the right email address. Why would the service provider change the email address that they normally use per our contract and our agreement, right? Because service providers don't do that. If you said, email me on this email, they are not going to change and start emailing you on your other personal email. So that is a nice way also to be able to ensure that you protect your personal information by separating, emails and having a personal email where you can email people can share that email and so because we don't know how this data gets leaked, right? So you try by all means to protect yourself and not put yourself in a position where people can easily access your information. So that's why I say create a new email just for important information. And if that email is just used for important information, then of course, then it also reduces the chances of you getting phishing emails and you being falling trapped to these kind of phishing emails that are out there, right? And I'll show you a few that are a bit tricky. But I'll also give a bit of advice as to how to try and make sure to double check and triple check that information. And another thing is that regularly check for fraud alerts and breach notifications. So I know a lot of people don't take note of this, and it's so important, guys. I can't stress it enough because your device, it will tell you this is not a secure website. Why do you go there if it's not secure? Because clearly there's something that is lingering behind this Trojan horses and all these complicated things these fraudsters use to try and get access to your information, right, and hack you in any shape or form, right? So when your device tells you that don't click on this link because it's not secure, don't click on the link. Right, guys, another one that it seems very simple and people normally fall trapped to is Wi-Fi, right? Every time we go onto a public place, you literally want to just log on to the free Wi-Fi. And there are people who literally they have their own routers, right? And they sit at a mall and they'll create a Wi-Fi called, for example, Mall of Africa. They'll name the Wi-Fi hotspot Mall of Africa and they'll make it free. And immediately when you click on that Wi-Fi, right? You click on that, you're accessing that Wi-Fi. What happens now? You're now being hacked and you're giving people access to your information, right, on your phone and so forth. So there's so many levels to this game, guys, and we just need to protect ourselves as much as possible. So I always say if you're going to be logging onto a free Wi-Fi anywhere in the world, you rather make sure that if you're going to be logging on the Wi-Fi, stick to your social, stick to all the random Googling stuff. Don't log on to any personal information related things like, for example, your banking apps. Stay away from your banking apps. Stay away from opening emails with its sensitive information because you don't know who could be spoofing, right? That's what they call it, right? Where they come onto they spoof you with emails and then I think and they send you a particular email and you click on the email and so it's the wrong email and so forth and so forth and then you fall trapped to these fraudsters. So there's different ways for them to try and access this information, so you need to make sure that you try and protect yourself as much as possible, guys. All right. So I wanted to also show you an example of what an email notification, a notification from your device. So this one is a notification that I got from my on my laptop, right? So you see, so, Safari prevents trackers from following you across websites. So you see it in the last 30 days, right? 28%, right? And then they've also give you a list of the websites that are used by these fraudsters, right? To try and access your information. So when you need to make sure that you don't actually click on these particular links. And there's also sometimes they would tell you, right, when you're trying to open a particular link that this link is no longer secure. And especially if you are a person who likes maybe bookmarking links. So it's not a good idea to bookmark links that have sensitive information unless you're going to bookmark the link and make sure that that password, right? You don't save the password. You can bookmark the link, but don't save the password because it could get corrupted, right? So that is another important thing that you need to make sure that you do when it comes to checking your devices for any notifications around attacks on your personal information. Okay, so here we go. Monitoring your accounts regularly is another third step. So, guys, this is very easy. You can set up alerts for transactions above a certain threshold. So you go to your banking app. Normally, they'll require you to actually log on the website. I don't think it's done via the app because the app is just more for seamless use, but some of these functionalities are disabled from the app. So you normally have to log onto the website itself, go on the web and log onto your banking via the web, and then change your transactions, right? Change your notifications for transactions. So normally I say to people, maybe anything, right? Depends on your comfort. So sometimes people would want to get a notification for anything above 10 Rand, anything above 100 Rand, and so forth. So basically, that's what it does. You are able to ask your bank to alert you for any of these transactions above a certain amount. And of course, yes, it is charged because they send you a notification via SMS. So there is a charge attached to it, but it also protects you because you are able to know if someone is transacting on your account without your knowledge. Because I mean, we don't check our banking app every single day. If there's no transactions that you're looking out for, or you need to make sure you've paid someone or you're waiting for funds, you don't necessarily go on your banking app, right? Unless you're going to do a particular transaction. So it's unrealistic to say that you'd have to go and check your banking app every day. But if you have these notifications, right, it also then allows you to be able to be notified by the bank itself if there's any transactions above a particular threshold that you have selected. Okay. And say, yes, reviewing bank statements. I know this one is so daunting because there's so many transactions that go off on your account on a daily basis, on a monthly basis. So now having to sit down and just go through them to check if there's any discrepancies. But it's important because that's the only way you're going to be able to pick up if there's any attempts of fraud on your account or any transactions you are not aware of, right? Okay, and that's why the notification part comes is important because if you do the notifications, it also then protects you from situations where people are accessing funds from your account without your knowledge, right? Remember the 99 Rand scam? Because the fraudsters already knew that your bank only notifies you if you've got a transaction above 100 Rand. So that's why they then did a 99 Rand scam. And remember, it took such a long time for the banks to actually catch on that this is a scam, right? So it's also the onus is on you as the consumer and the user, right? To make sure that you protect yourself, guys. So that's why I say that put on the notifications, check your monthly bank statement so that you make sure that no one is accessing your funds aside from you. Okay. And then check your credit report annually, right? This one is important ideally because you find that sometimes people have lost an ID, they've lost a driver's license, and they're like, oh, no biggie, I'll just go to Home Affairs and get a new ID, get a new driver's license. But What they don't realize is that whoever had that information, what are they doing with it, right? Because it's not as if you can cancel your driver's license or cancel your ID. You can't, right? Because you can't, I mean, you can't cancel yourself, right? So the other thing, this is where the credit report comes in, because it also helps you detect if there's any financial obligations under your name that you're not aware of. Do you now have loans, right, that someone took out in your name and you were not aware of, right? So that's what you want to check when it comes to these this credit report. Do you have a situation where people have taken your stolen your identity and maybe opened certain retail accounts and so forth, right? So that is why it's important that you check your credit report annually to spot any irregularities on your record, right? Because you know what type of credits you have, and in any situation, maybe if you've taken a loan or so forth, you know and you are aware of that information. So there are platforms that offer free credit reports, and I will give you a list of those platforms in the next slide. And the last one is, of course, checking your debit orders. And what I love about the banking systems now is that after the 99 Rand scam, one of the security measures that banks actually put in place is something called like debit check. So you can actually check the debit order first and verify if that debit order is what is meant to be debited from your account. It's more like you authorizing it prior to it actually going off on your account. So no one can actually create a debit order on your account without your knowledge anymore, because now you're able to get a verification. Then you have to go onto your banking app and approve that debit order first before it starts going off on your account, which is a great security measure to protect consumers, especially with the 99 Rand scam, right? That we were all actually defrauded by, right? And so a nice way is the debit order check. So you can also go to your banking app and see the list of debit orders, right, that are going off on your account. If you don't agree, you can dispute it via your mobile app, or you can visit your branch at whichever branch that is closest to you for the bank, and be able to dispute those type of debit orders that you do not agree with. Like I said, just a list of the credit reports um, service providers. So Experian is one of them. You can get a free credit report on Experian, TransUnion, ClearScore, and the Credit Bureau Association. They also offer free credit reports for you to be able to check what is happening in terms of your finances, right? So I also wanted us to look at ways to protect your business from financial fraud. I know a lot of people run small businesses, right? I myself also run a small business, and this is very important for me. So whether it's a small, large, or prime, or large business, we are always prime targets for fraudsters, especially because you're always looking for business, you're always engaging with different people, right? Because you want to grow your business, so you are more vulnerable because there are so many things that go on in terms of your business that people can utilize those kind of opportunities and gaps and loopholes to try and fraud you or defraud you of your finances within your business. So what I advise, right, is that firstly, employee training. Okay. It's very important to make sure that, if you've got people that are working with you in your organization, that you educate them around financial fraud, right? And security. So firstly is helping your employees recognize phishing attempts, phishing email attempts, fraudulent emails, and suspicious payment requests, right? Remember on our first lesson, we talked about investment fraud and how Google and Facebook were a victim of a invoice fraud, right? And they were actually robbed of millions because employees started paying to a fraudster and unaware that this person had intercepted their invoicing system and was sending them fictitious invoices to be able to gain access to finances from Facebook and Google, right? So that's why it's important to educate employees on how to actually detect such emails and report the emails, because one person might be able to see that this is a fraudulent email, but the next person might not. So having a process in place that allows people to be able to report such emails also protects the organization because it creates awareness, right? Okay, so and here we go. Verify unusual financial requests through a second form of communication. I like this one because, I mean, if you are always engaging with a client, right, and you know that this client, I'm always engaging with Amber, and all of a sudden, some Brandon guy calls me and says, "Hey, Amber's absent," and they don't say Amber because they don't know Amber, right? So they just say, "No, I'm from this company. We've sent you an invoice," and then when you ask, whoa, okay, where's Amber? And then they'll tell you, no, Amber is not available. And that kind of sounds dodgy, right? Because I mean, if you've been dealing with a particular person for a long period of time, then of course the organization would notify you that this person has left or so forth. There's changes in their organization, just to make sure that they protect you as well. But for you to be on the safe side, communication, the second form of communication, be it in um, a call. I prefer a call because if you've engaged with that person telephonically, then you know what their voice sounds like. Then you can give them a call. It's going to be weird if you've been dealing with Amber and Amber is a female, and the next thing you call Amber and Amber is male. And you're like, what's happening, right? It's already a red flag. So, a second form of communication, it's very helpful in those kind of situations. So, create clear policies. Like I said, if you have these policies to report, suspected fraud, right, and behavior, so it also keeps the rest of the organization in the know, because if one person detects this type of fraud, then they communicate onto this particular platform, or part of the policy is that maybe you need to report it and send it to IT, internal IT, and then IT will then send an email to notify, and they can notify all the other employees. They can also then now do their part to actually strengthen the cybersecurity measures within the organization to try and protect themselves. So you can do that. I mean, I've emailed my service provider to let them know that I've received so many phishing attempt emails, and they've helped me to try and better protect, my website and so forth, so that I don't find myself in a situation where I'm being hacked. So communication is very important, guys. So that it makes sure that everybody is aware of what is going on and no one is left behind. And so, with that said, I want us to just recap and refresh, some of the examples we went through on our second lesson, which was focusing on phishing emails. So I brought this one back again because, I mean, this is an email that was sent, right, to me to highlight, right, what's going on in terms of SARS. And there's an attachment, right, and you can't click on that attachment. So the next thing that you would have to do is what? Click on the link, right? They think they're smart. And so I'm not going to give away too many tips to the fraudsters if they actually sit and watch my lessons to see how they can better their fraud attempts. But isn't it funny that the email says reply to no reply? Like, isn't that a bit funny, right? Because remember, we spoke about this in the last lesson around how that some service providers have a specific email. It would be weird if you get an email, a SARS email that says .co.za, because SARS is gov.za. But don't you think it's smart now that these fraudsters are now using gov.za, right? Tricky. And I'm going to show you another one, right? So, but SARS will not send you an email that says no reply, right? And say reply to. It doesn't make sense, right? Because how am I meant to reply to an email that says no reply? And I always say this, guys, verify, 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 verify. And the only way to verify this information, like I said, the information on this email, there's so many spelling errors and so forth. So it was honestly, it was so obvious for me that this is a fraudulent email. Another reason, like I said, I don't get such emails on personal email. I've got a specific email dedicated to this type of information, right? And I know SARS will not start sending me information, this kind of information on a personal email if I've got a different email registered with them. So, like I said, guys, what they are looking for, is for you to not pay attention. And that's how you fall trap to these things. So pay attention all the time. Don't click on any of the links. And here's another one that I found very funny, and I'm bringing it back, right? And I know a lot of people fall trapped to this one because, I mean, people are curious by nature, and, we like kind of free things, and we're gullible sometimes. So, no, guys, I mean, why would you be receiving any communication from a courier company if you're not expecting any form of parcels or stuff? So, unless someone has sent you something, they need to communicate. No one is going to send you a package and not tell you, because what if you're not in town, right? So they are going to definitely tell you that, hey, I've sent you a package. These are the details in terms of the tracking number, right? Because it's such a risk to just send someone something without notification. So this is also a funny one, because now it's requiring you to just pay a small fee, which is 34 rand and 99 cents. And now you click on this link to pay, and while you're paying, right, you need to use what? Your credit card or debit card details, and that's how they start skimming your details, right? That's a smart way to get access to your debit and credit card details. So stay away from clicking on any links and paying for things that you shouldn't be paying for. What business do you have trying to pay for a parcel that you're not meant to be receiving? Let's be honest, guys. And then the last one, right, is a nice email that this one is a tricky one, right? And this, I actually remove the data because, shockingly enough, the information on this document was correct, right? And like I said, the only thing that gave me an indication that this is a fraudulent email, because it was sent to the wrong email, right? Exactly. So, what I wanted to highlight to you guys here is that, of course, like I said, I'm not going to give too many tips around how to spot these fraudulent emails. We don't want to help fraudsters better their trade, right? So, this one, I'm bringing this one because, as you can see, it's recent, the 24th of October. And like I said, the first way I was able to note that this is a fraudulent email because it was sent to the wrong email. So let's say, for example, if the email is sent to your correct email that you had registered at SARS, right? And you do see the information on this email, it's just notifying you about the tax compliance. And of course, as a business, you want to make sure that you are compliant at all times when it comes to your tax business within the organization, because compliance is important. You lose business, you lose contracts, and so forth if you are non-compliant, and it's quite a risk, for a business. So, like I said, I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty details as to the spelling errors and so forth for you to notice that this document is fraud. But the one tip I can give you is that you can just do something simple. Literally, do not click on any links, firstly. Secondly, go onto your SARS website, right? Go to SARS website, open your e-filing, go under SARS e-filing and check correspondence, right? SARS has a list of all the documents, information, any letter they've sent you, any form of correspondence that they've sent to you in a form of a letter, it will be listed under that history. So if this type of document is not there, it's fraud. So that is another way that you can verify and just make sure that you keep alert, protecting yourself and your business. Okay. And then here's another one, right? Secure payment systems, right? So using secure payment gateways and verify the security of vendors and payment processes. So this is a very important one, especially if you are transacting, if you're running a business and there's payments that people need to do online. Using credible payment gateways is very important, because that way it also protects you and your business and your clients in this instance. Okay, keeping your software and systems updated to avoid security vulnerabilities. That's another important one, guys. As I mentioned, communicate, with IT to let them know that, hey, I'm getting so many spam emails, what is going on, so that they can also just check if there's no vulnerabilities in terms of the sites. Okay, and they can increase the security measures. Okay, this one is an important one. Segregate duties among employees for financial transactions to prevent fraud by reducing the risk of one person having too much control over the payments process. Okay, so it's important to make sure that you have more than one person processing payments. Okay, because that way you don't find a situation where one person does everything and it actually puts the business at risk. So if you have two or three people, there's a checking process and a quality assurance process by having more than one person. So that also just makes sure that you're protecting the business from any form of external and internal fraud and risks, right? Because of course, sometimes you find situations where fraudsters have an inside man, and unfortunately, you're not aware that you're being defrauded, and the fraudsters that are defrauding you have an inside man, and the very inside man is the person who's processing the payments, right? So that's why having a another person to actually work along with that person that processes these payments actually protects your organization from any form of risk. Okay, and the last one, right? Here it is. Conduct due diligence on vendors and suppliers, including verifying their legitimacy and checking reviews or references. Like I said, call and double check. You've been dealing with Amber all these years, and all of a sudden, when you try and call Amber, and Brandon answers and tells you Amber doesn't exist. No ways. It makes no sense, right? So you always need to have some form of a way to just make sure you can check, double check, triple check if if need be, to make sure that this information that you are getting has not changed, right? And I know that a lot of institutions and service providers will always communicate to their clients that we will never send you a request to change your details. We would never accept a request of changing details without talking to you. So those are also ways for you to make sure that you are aware that information changes don't just happen overnight. So by you calling and verifying also ensures that you are not duped by anyone to fall victim to these scams, right? Okay, so the same with the invoices. This is another one. Regularly review vendor invoices and accounts payable to detect unusual payment requests. And that's exactly what happened, in that Google example, right? One of the employees got a payment request and they didn't see anything weird about it because it looked okay. I will take you back to this email, right? It looks legitimate, and I'm not going to mention what's wrong about it, but it does look legitimate to an untrained eye. They would fall trap to this, right? So and like I said, there's data leaks, guys. So information is leaked. So hence why I shaded this information out, because this information was correct, right? Tax reference number was correct. The details in terms of the business details, it was correct. And the only way I was able to detect that this is a fraudulent account, it was a fraudulent email, like I said, because it was sent to the wrong email. Secondly, because I went to the e-filing system and verified, and that communication was not under the correspondence from SARS, because there's no way fraudsters will be able to actually now start populating their fraudulent emails onto the SARS website. So I really hope you got as much information as you could with this lesson. And if you've missed any of our lessons, please go back onto our platforms, right, and watch our previous episodes on financial wellness so that you can be able to learn more about money. And I would like to say thank you yet again for joining us. And yes, please keep a lookout for these fraudsters, because they are unscrupulous and they are relentless, because they keep sending you emails. They'll keep trying to contact you and get your personal information and business information to try and defraud you. So always keep on a lookout and utilize these tips to try and protect yourself and your business. Thanks, guys, and have a good one.